These are 10 prison escapes that should not have worked, but did. Crown Point Jail in Indiana was supposed to be escape-proof. That was the mistake, because in March 1934, they were holding John Dillinger, one of the most wanted bank robbers in America. He carved a fake pistol out of wood, darkened it with shoe polish, and waited for the right moment. Then he pointed it at the guards. And here's the part that makes this insane. The gun did not have to work. It only had to look like it could. The guards believed it. That was enough. Dillinger bluffed his way through the jail, forced guards into cells, locked them inside, walked out, stole the sheriff's car, and vanished. The security failure was not that the weapon was powerful. It was that nobody had time to ask if it was real. Yoshi Shiratori did not escape one prison. He escaped 4. And what made him terrifying to prison officials was not brute strength. It was patience. He studied routines. He watched guards. He learned the rhythm of the system, because every prison has a schedule. At one prison, he picked a lock with a piece of wire. At another, he found a weakness in a rotting skylight frame. But his most unbelievable escape came when officials tried to make escape physically impossible. They placed him in restraints, locked him in a special cell. According to the legend, he used miso soup from his meals to corrode his handcuffs and leg irons over time. Not in one day, not in 1 week, slowly, meal after meal. Then, when the restraints weakened, he broke free. But the door still had one problem. The food slot was tiny, so he reportedly dislocated his shoulders, forced himself through the opening, dropped to the floor, and disappeared. That is not just an escape. That is a man turning the prison's routine into a weapon against itself. The system watched his body, but it ignored his patience.
Folsom Prison was not supposed to be easy. In 1987, Glenn Stewart Godwin was serving time for murder, and after a previous escape attempt, authorities sent him somewhere tougher. But Godwin did not need the front gate. He needed the part of the prison nobody thought of as an exit, a storm drain. Using a smuggled hacksaw, he cut through fencing and slipped into a drainage system beneath the prison. Then he crawled through darkness. Not a clean tunnel, not a movie hallway, a pitch-black drain pipe, nearly 750 feet. His accomplices had reportedly painted arrows on rocks to guide him through the darkness, because one wrong turn could mean getting trapped underground. At the end of the drain, he reached the American River. A raft was waiting. That means this escape did not start when he entered the storm drain. It started long before that. And after being captured in Mexico, he later escaped again from a prison in Guadalajara. 2 countries, 2 escapes, 1 lesson. The fence failed. The drain failed. But the real failure started before he ever reached the river. Most prison escapes try to stay quiet. Pascal Payette did the opposite. He made the sky the exit. In 2001, Payette's accomplices hijacked a helicopter and flew to the prison roof. No tunnel, no disguise, no fake identity. Just a helicopter landing where a helicopter was never supposed to be. They pulled him out and flew away. And if that sounds impossible, somehow it got worse. In 2003, while still on the run, Payette helped organize another helicopter escape, this time to break out 3 other inmates. Authorities eventually recaptured him, so they moved him to what was supposed to be a more secure prison. Then in 2007, it happened again. Gunmen hijacked another helicopter, landed on the roof, and flew him out. At some point, this was no longer just an inmate escaping. This was a prison system being challenged from above. The walls were useless. The gates were useless. The locks were useless. Payette did not find a hole in the wall. He found a hole in the sky. Radwan Fide did not treat prison like a cage. He treated it like a heist location. A French gangster fascinated by crime films, Fide escaped in 2013 in one of the loudest ways possible: explosives. He used smuggled explosives to blast through reinforced prison doors. Not one, multiple. During the chaos, he took prison staff hostage, moved through the facility, and escaped. But somehow, that still was not the craziest part. After being recaptured, Fide escaped again in 2018. This time, accomplices hijacked a helicopter
and landed it in a prison courtyard, in the one area not properly protected by anti-aircraft netting. That is the entire story in one sentence. The prison had security, just not where it mattered. Defied exposed something modern prisons hate admitting. You can have reinforced doors, armed guards, and surveillance everywhere, but one uncovered blind spot can still become the exit. The prison prepared for inmates. It did not prepare for a movie scene.
Some escapes are quiet. This one was organized like a takeover. In December 2000, 7 inmates escaped from a Texas maximum security prison. They became known as the Texas 7. Their weapon was not a tunnel, it was control. They chose a less supervised time of day and moved fast. They overpowered prison workers, took uniforms, took credentials, took weapons from the prison armory. And then they did the most disturbing part. They did not sneak out like fugitives. They used the system's own appearance against it. Uniforms, a maintenance truck, the confidence of people who looked like they belonged. Then they drove out. That is what makes this escape so dangerous. The prison did not just lose 7 inmates, it lost command of its own identity. For hours, the system did not fully understand what had happened, and that delay helped trigger one of the largest manhunts in Texas history. The hidden lesson here is brutal. Sometimes security fails because someone breaks through it. Sometimes it fails because someone learns how to look like part of it.
Dannemora had gone more than 100 years without a successful escape. That streak ended in 2015. Richard Matt and David Sweat were locked inside Clinton Correctional Facility in New York, a prison with stone walls, heavy security, and a reputation for being nearly impossible to escape. But their escape did not begin with the wall. Power tools were smuggled in with help from a compromised prison employee. For months, they cut through the steel behind their cells. Behind the wall was a hidden world of catwalks, pipes, and maintenance spaces. They moved through the prison's guts. Then they cut into a steam pipe, crawled through it, and eventually came out of a manhole outside the prison walls. Before leaving, they reportedly left behind a note, "Have a nice day." That escape triggered a 23-day manhunt. One inmate was killed, the other was captured, but by then the damage was done. The prison's reputation was gone, because this escape showed that the strongest wall in the world does not matter if someone inside helps open it. This wasn't just an escape, it was a corruption case.
Some escapes are clever. This one was engineered. In 2015, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was inside one of Mexico's most secure prisons, the kind of place built specifically to hold someone like him. Cameras watched his cell, guards monitored his movement, and then, on surveillance footage, he walks into the shower area, then disappears. At first, that sounds impossible until guards enter the cell and see the hole, a rectangular opening cut into the shower floor. Underneath it was a tunnel, not a rough hole, a full escape route, nearly a mile long. Lights, ventilation, reinforcement, and a motorcycle on rails, reportedly used to move dirt and supplies through the tunnel. The tunnel led to a construction site outside the prison. That means this escape was not just dug, it was planned with precision. Someone knew where to tunnel. Someone knew the prison layout. Someone knew where cameras could not see. Someone knew how to build under the most watched inmate in the country. And when El Chapo vanished through that tunnel, the question was not just how did he escape, it was how many people had to look away for this to work.
Alcatraz was not famous because of its walls. It was famous because of the water. San Francisco Bay surrounded it, cold, dark, unforgiving. Freedom was only about 1.25 miles away, but that distance was supposed to be impossible. Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin. First, the walls. For months, they scraped at the concrete behind their cells with sharpened spoons and homemade tools. Every morning, they covered the damage with fake wall panels. Guards walked by, saw nothing. But getting out of the cell was not enough, because guards still checked the beds. So they built decoys, fake heads made from soap, plaster, paper, and real hair from the prison barbershop. They tucked them under the blankets. So when guards looked in, they saw sleeping inmates. They were not sleeping. They were moving through the walls. On June 11th, 1962, they reached the roof, climbed down a pipe, made it to the shoreline, and launched a raft made from prison raincoats. Then San Francisco Bay swallowed the evidence. The FBI hunted them for years. The official conclusion was that they drowned.
but no bodies were ever found. No confirmed remains. No clean ending. Less than a year later, Alcatraz shut down for good. Officially, it was cost and deterioration, but the legend was already broken.
The craziest escape on this list did not start with a tunnel. It started with a body. In May 2022, a fire broke out inside a South African maximum security prison. Inside the cell of Thabo Bester, a convicted murderer and rapist, guards found burned remains. The announcement followed. Bester was dead. Case closed. Except it was not. Months passed. Journalists began asking questions. Then the post-mortem results came out. The body in the cell had been dead before the fire. That one detail cracked the entire story open, because if the body was already dead before the fire, then the fire was not the tragedy, it was the cover. Then a photo surfaced. Bester was reportedly alive, seen shopping with his partner in Johannesburg. The government eventually had to admit what sounded impossible. Thabo Bester had escaped. He had allegedly faked his death, walked out of prison, and lived freely while the system publicly treated him as a corpse. That is why this is number one. Because most prison escapes try to hide from the system. This one made the system announce the lie for him. The prison did not lose him during an escape. It declared him dead. And for nearly a year, the world believed it. That is not just an escape. That is a system failure with a death certificate.
Every prison on this list was supposed to control the impossible. But every escape found the same thing. One weakness. A fake gun, a routine, a storm drain, a helicopter, a stolen uniform, an insider, a tunnel, a fake body. And once that weakness opened, the whole system followed. So now, Your Honor, which escape exposed the biggest failure? The wooden gun, the helicopter, the tunnel, the raincoat raft, or the man who escaped by dying? Drop your verdict below and subscribe so you don't end up in prison.